I don't think it's appropriate to start this the way that we typically would, Katie. This week on Sunday, Father's Day, we lost someone very near and dear to us, to WAYZ, and the wonderful Tori Anderson passed away, 63 years old. And we thought that it was only fitting that this episode of the podcast be solely devoted to her.
Yeah, I agree. Tori was a really amazing individual. She really impacted a lot of lives. And you worked with her a lot longer than I did, and your relationship was a little bit different with her. But she was a woman in radio, a great example of what I wanted to be, and just a complete inspiration to everybody that she had ever met or spoken to, or even if they just heard her on the radio.
I was saying today to some people when I got off the air today, because today was the hardest thing I ever had to do in radio. And it was she did the High Noon Saloon, which now is called the Tunes at Noon. And it was what she was known for. She was very good at it. And I said, well, we're going to rename it for the day, the High Noon Saloon again. And it's going to be a tribute hour for her. But first, and thanks to everyone who messaged and called and I was so overwhelmed with the support of doing that hour, because it's kind of risky, because Tori's been gone off the air for 9 years. Mm-hmm. Not that I thought that people forgot, but we've had a lot more people come in to the radio station as listeners, and you risk kind of alienating people in a way. Because they might be thinking, I don't know who this person is. So part of my goal in that hour was to kind of introduce them to who Tori was and the impact that she had. But I said off the air, one of the sales reps came into my office and I said, and she had never met Tori. I said, you'd only have to be around Tori for a minute. Mm-hmm. And you would get a full sense of who she was, the way she made you feel. You could be having the crappiest day in the world, just a horrible day. And you spend a minute with Tori. If you don't feel better, then your ears weren't open. Yeah. Plain and simple.
And the thing with Tori was she was fighting such a battle with scleroderma, and she wasn't feeling well. And when you would go in and talk to Tori, it's kind of like she just put that to the back of her brain and focused on what you were talking about and your problems. And sometimes, you forget other people's realities because yours seems so big. But then you think about, here I am complaining about something that's so trivial, and this beautiful person is having this battle that she's going through, but she's still sitting and listening and giving really solid advice. I mean, she was a great advice giver.
Tori was, she was a therapist. She was a mother.
Mom. Mm-hmm.
I mean, she was, if there was a void that you had in your life, she filled it. And matter of fact, sometimes you wouldn't realize there was a void. But when you met Tori, you realized that she filled it, because everyone needs someone like Tori in their life.
She's just such a pure heart. I mean, 100% pure heart, and just absolutely loved by everybody. And it was really powerful when I started working at the radio station, being a woman in radio. I really looked up to her. I really idolized her. And I saw this love and this passion that she had for her listeners, and they had for her as well. And I just remember thinking, if I can have half of that as a woman in this profession, I've definitely left my mark.
Yeah, you're set.
It was just something, I've never seen anything like that before in my life. It was
and
really
I don't think that we will, given where radio is and where it's going, which I'm not against, but that connection that you have with local DJs, I think is now few and far between. It's at least fewer and farther between. And you will not see that loyalty and love and respect that people in our area had for Tori. And I was thinking about this morning driving into the radio station, like, what was the unique factors about Tori? Now, that really came through to people. And I think one of the main things is, and I'll explain it, is trust. Because Tori's from here. And that is not something that in our industry, in radio, is common, where you are from here, you work here, in radio that is, you spend your life here, you make your legacy here, you have your family here. Radio is a very nomadic thing. And
I think that's why you and her also had that really deep bond, because you had that and coming in, you're both really into your faith, and you guys had a very special relationship. You really did. I mean, everybody had a special one with Tori, but I know that yours was a very, very deep one.
If you mind tears when you're watching something like this, you turn it off now, because it's impossible for me to explain and tell the story that I have about Tori and the stories. And I have a funny one. She also had her comedic moments, but
yes, she did.
Tori was, to Katie's point, so special to me. I could talk to you for 10 hours and try to convey to you how much she meant to me. And I wouldn't even come close. I don't even know the words. It's one of those things where it's that feeling in the heart that you cannot verbalize. And that's what it is. It's almost like when you have a child.
Mm-hmm. I was just going to say that.
I can't explain to you how much I love my daughter. I cannot explain to you how much I love Tori. I can't put it into words. But I'm going to do my best by sharing some things about her. But and Katie will merge into this very well. And the funny story that I have actually involves Katie. But when you love radio, like Katie and I love radio, like Tori loved radio, it's in your bones. There's no doubt about that. And it usually hits you at an early age. Now, maybe not specifically radio, but something you're going to be in communication in some way, shape, or form. For me, not only did I know that I wanted to be in radio at a very early age, but I knew I wanted to work for WAYZ. So my dream was literally to be exactly where I am doing what I was doing, or I am doing. And I would call Tori back when I was 12, somewhere around there ish. And back then we had cassette tapes, amazingly. And I would sit at my computer as well, and I would record songs and record my voice. I would call her and bother her and play for her the recordings of me talking up the intros of songs and ask her for feedback. And I told her, I said, one day I really want to work there. Now, having been on the other side of this, having been in Tori's shoes now, that's the kind of thing that, I hate to say this, I don't necessarily mean it this way, but I'd be like, okay, here's that kid again.
Oh yeah. That gets a little irritating.
Frustrating.
I can absolutely, but I guarantee, I don't know this whole story, but I'm assuming that she gave you the feedback. She listened to you every time, was very genuine in her response. I mean, that's just the kind of person she was. Very, very pure, very genuine.
She always had time. And to Katie's point, and something that she says, she was there for it. Every single time Tori was there for you. And that started with me at 12 years old. I'm almost 40 now. I'm a year shy from it. So 28 years, Tori always gave me her attention when I needed it. And that's foundational when you're 12. So fast forward to 2001. I fill out an application. That's a long, sordid story, but nonetheless, I got a job. I got hired part-time at WAYZ. And I remember I filled out the paperwork. I came in, and the first person that they set me with, the PD at the time, the programs director, said, "How much time do you have?" And I said, "How much time do you need?" I was just eager. I was ready to go. Mm-hmm. And he said, "Well, let's have you sit in with Tori." And I was like, "Tori?" Oh, whoa.
My legend. Yeah.
Oh my God. Now, mind you, the PD at the time was the morning guy. So he was also very popular, but when he said Tori, I was like, sign me up. Just let me sit under that learning tree. So I go in and I introduce myself, and I thought to myself the whole time, do I tell her that I'm that
crazy kid that calls all the time?
Yeah. And by this time, I think I had not done that maybe in 2 years or more. And I'm like, yeah, I got to tell her. So I told her, I said, Tori, I want you to know something. Years ago, do you remember a kid calling you and describing to her? And she said, yeah, I do. I said, that was me. And she got this look on her face of pride. It wasn't surprise. It was just pride. And I know that because I saw that look from her many times over the years when she talked to me. Mm-hmm. And she trained me, essentially. And I left after a few years and spent a couple years in radio in Harrisburg and came back in 2009 part-time. And an opening came up for full-time. And I had told the boss, I said, I'm certainly, I would love to have it. But by that point, having spent, 8 years and being overlooked time after time after time, not just with one company, but another company as well, I thought, maybe part-time is as good as it gets. And I had resigned myself to that. And when I came back to AYZ, it was simply because I wanted to come back home, end it where I started, and I would just call it a radio career. It just wasn't meant to be full-time. What I didn't know was that behind the scenes, Tori was fighting with everything she had to get them to hire me. And that's why in my Facebook post that I posted on Monday, I said she fought for me when I didn't even know there was a battle. I had no idea. And the boss told me, he said, I want you to know that I've never been called an idiot before by someone who works for me. And I was this time when it came to hiring you. And I said, why is that? He said, because Tori came to me and said, if you don't hire him, you're an idiot. And it took everything I had to maintain composure because by that point, Tori was so special to me. And I just went in and hugged her. And I said, I want to tell you something. And she said, I already know. And I said, I wasn't going to tell you that they gave me full time. I was going to tell you that I love you more than I can ever express. And she welled up. And again, there was that look of pride from her and love. And so I was doing afternoons at the time and I was following her. And after I tell this story, we kind of merge into Katie here. So hopefully we can get into some lighthearted stuff. But this one to me was the be all end all. And we would do what's called crosstalk. So I would be going on the air, Tori would be going off, and we would both have a microphone and we'd just talk about whatever. How was your day? And this one day she said, coming up, and it was always, I went by Dan Michaels in, and she goes, coming up, Dan Michaels, blah, blah, blah. Well, this one day she said, coming up, Dan, and in her way, she goes, Tiny. And that it stuck out because she'd never called me that before, ever.
Oh, is that how you got Tiny?
Yeah.
I've never known that.
Yeah. Now, and I'm amazed not many people have. I thought I've told that story 1,000 times, but apparently I haven't. Hey, Katie, we found a story I haven't told 1,000 times.
No, so Tori started to call you Tiny.
Yes.
And that's how this all came, Tiny Michaels.
Correct.
I had no idea.
And when she said it, I didn't say anything on the air about it, but it really stuck out. And then when we got off the air, I can't remember if I said anything then or not. Like, what did you mean by that? But eventually I did say, because she did it, then it was either the next day or the following day. And then she just kept doing it. And I do remember, asking her, like, what is going on here? I'm not offended that you call me that, because at the time I was 350 pounds. So
right.
it made
clearly
sense.
An oxymoron.
Yeah, absolutely. So I didn't mind her doing it, but she would never call me that at any other point. It's only when she was introducing me to our audience on the air would she say that in regular, daily, whatever. Hey, morning, Dan, blah, blah, blah. The normal stuff. Never once was it ever Tiny. So our boss at the time, our programs director, called me in his office one day and he said, hey, I've heard this thing with Tori where she calls you Tiny. Like, what's that about? I told him, like I just told you, I don't know. But I'm not, I thought he was going to ask me if I minded, like if I was offended by it, as Katie said, with the oxymoron of poking fun at my weight. What he said was, he goes, well, why don't you use that on the air maybe a couple times during your shift? And I looked at him and I said, well, no, I'm not going to do that. I said, if I were going to do that, I'd just go ahead and just change my name altogether and just start going by Tiny and be done with it. And then I paused and I said, well, why not? Why not? Why wouldn't I do that? And I want to preface this next part by saying this. Anything I say regarding Tori naming me, I'm not saying this in any way, shape, or form to elevate myself at all. But to say that her doing that changed my life would be a gross understatement. Because if you are somewhere and you introduce yourself, hi, I'm Dan. Now, I love my name. It's my father's name. And that's what will be on my headstone. But Dan, it doesn't elicit anything. But when you say, hi, I'm Tiny, it's that, oh, nice to, oh, wait a minute. And you instantly become recognizable for your brand as a radio station. You become more marketable. It's a more trademarkish type thing. Her doing that, and had no idea that she was doing anything, could never explain to me why she did it. But her doing that changed my life forever. I'll forever be grateful. My family calls me Tiny.
Oh, I know. Mary calls you Tiny.
My wife, aside from our wedding, Mary's never said my name, my real name.
Do you think that Tori knew that by doing that, it was going to kind of make you stand out in a way that maybe you wouldn't have made yourself stand out because you don't like a lot of attention and you kind of like to be in the background, and she knew that you were destined for more than that?
Quite possibly. I would.
That's what I would.
If I were to find out, if I could talk to her right now, of course, this would be the last thing I'd ask her, but if I could talk to her right now and ask her that question, it would not surprise me a bit if that's what she said. And maybe she thought I would be offended if she explained why, perhaps. I wouldn't have been. I don't think Tori could have ever offended me about anything. But yeah, it was amazing what she did for me.
She always had your back. It was in your corner in a big, bad way. Really. And I felt the same way with me as well. But you've known her 20 years longer than I did.
Yeah.
And I mean, as an outsider looking in, yeah, there was a lot of pride when it came to you. There was a lot of protection when it came to you. There was a lot of cheering. I mean, it was a very special relationship.
I was her boy, and I don't mean that like, my friend, that's my boy. I mean, I was her kid. I was her boy. And like Katie said, she had her protective wings around me, and I always felt that. And that, again, is just one of the many qualities that she had. She had that motherly instinct that just translated to so many people. And I can only speak for my experience with her.
Well, let me chime in here for a little bit, because when I started at WAYZ, I was young, 23, maybe, a kid, and an obnoxious kid.
Yes,
loud,
I can
no
vouch for
idea
that.
what I was doing. Yeah, just kind of like off the handle a little bit. And when I was around Tori, she gave me very solid motherly advice, not so much about just being on the air, but just being a young, vibrant girl in this industry and how to make myself more successful, because I saw the success that she had and the love that people had for her. And I wanted that. I wanted to have that special relationship. And she would tell me honestly, you kind of come in a little hot sometimes. Right. This is how you can be successful in your life and also in this industry. And I'll tell you what, she gave me some very, very valuable advice that just kind of calmed me down a little bit and kind of took me to adulthood.
She said to me regarding you early on, she said, Daniel, you're going to have to rein her in and calm her down, not because of radio in general, but because of this area. Because if any, and I would sit under that learning tree with Tori every day I could, because the one thing that I have learned over the years is if you don't know your audience, you know nothing. Mm-hmm. It's foundational. You have to know who you're talking to. Well, who better in our area than Tori Anderson? So when she said to me about, to your point, calming you down or whatever, verbiage she used, I took that to heart, because there again, she wanted you to be successful. And
she was right.
She was absolutely right.
Working at a top 40 station with a lot of energy, and that wasn't exactly what was needed from me.
Right.
And I'm glad that she pointed that out. And to you, because look at what happened because of that. This amazing relationship and this amazing radio career that I had, you still have those wonderful memories. So, and I never really stopped to think about it like that. But yeah, she really helped me to be successful with that audience, because I came in with so much to learn. Yeah. And someone needed to teach it to me.
She said to me, because this is just another extension off of that, but ties in very well. to Katie's point, when she came along, I had been by myself. I had never done radio with anyone else, either short-term, long-term, or anything in between. And they wound up with me and Katie together, but the plan was that Katie was going to have her own shift. And I remember it just kept lingering on and on and on. And I would go in and I told Tori, I'm like, God almighty, Tori, I don't know how much more of this girl I can take.
I am ready to go back to my solo shift.
I'm like, Tori, I know you fought for me to get this job, but I'm almost resenting you now because
how do we fight to get rid of this one? Send her back to Harrisburg.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Like, you had all this pull to get me hired. Do you have that pull to get her fired? Like, what can we do here? So, but I would vent to her and say, I just don't know how to handle this. I'm not used to this. It wasn't that I didn't like Katie. It was just that I didn't necessarily like, or I had not embraced being together with someone on the radio, on the air, and I didn't know how to do that. And she said, you may be on the verge of something that's never happened here. And that's a team show. At the time, we were doing afternoons. Now, no one knew that we would eventually move to mornings, but the point was that she called it, and she called it in midair. It wasn't like we didn't have any idea what was going on. Hell, management didn't know what was going on.
No, they just knew, like, let's let it go a little bit longer. Let's let it go a little bit longer, and it was lightning striking.
Yes,
successful. It was awesome.
Yeah, and she absolutely called it, and because of the patience that she told me to have, I gave it a chance. I tried to work myself into it and to work with you and then you me. So what's funny is, now think about this, is you're getting advice from her about us together. I'm getting advice from her about us together. And none of it's conflicting. And we are melding together and had 5 amazing #1 rated years at WAYZ.
And imagine if you didn't have that in your ear, because I know, I don't want to say you didn't like me, but you were very hesitant about
me. Oh yeah, you were a lot. And I mean, we can joke around about it now, but knowing, and that's not offensive to Katie, because she knows how I am, the type of person that I am. So it was very much so me having to embrace how Katie was, accept how Katie was, but myself to let myself blossom, I guess, or open up a little bit would be.
Yeah, be more open-minded.
Right. Would you like to hear a funny story about Tori?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. This one, as a matter of fact, we had to get to our sponsor, but so coming up here after the break, I'm going to tell you a funny story about our beloved Tori Anderson, who passed away on Father's Day this year at the age of 63. And I'll tell you about that story that involves Katie in just a minute. You don't want your hair just cut or styled. Get your hair designed at Roots Hair Design, 5459 Molly Pitcher Highway in Chambersburg, 717-375-2130. How about a women's cut? $32, $35, or $38? Guys, you're not going to get a better price on the cut you're going to receive at Roots Hair Design than $23. Now, if you have a teenager, they're getting ready for those summer pictures, girl or boy, $25 and $20 respectively. A kid's cut, just $18. Maybe you need your roots touched up, they have that as well. And they can do your nails, take care of your lashes, facial treatments, waxings, and what I plan to get is a massage. Roots Hair Design, 5459 Molly Pitcher Highway in Chambersburg. $10 off your first service to any new guests, and they're approaching their 12th year in business. You don't last that long if you're not doing something, or in their case, a lot of things right. Roots Hair Design, we can't thank them enough for being part of the Tiny and Katie Show.
More of the Tiny and Katie Show starts now.
And we're back on the Tiny and Katie Show. It is our tribute to Tori Anderson, who passed away on Sunday, the 19th, at her home in Hancock, Maryland. And we certainly already miss her. Katie, I said before, a world without Tori is not one that that I know. It's true. Mm-hmm. It's very true, and maybe not one that you want to think about being part of. But so I shared my early history with Tori, and then how professionally we got to know each other. Katie shared hers. Now we're up to where Katie and I have been doing the Tiny and Katie Show for a year. At the time, Tori was celebrating her 15th year on the air at WAYZ. So we're talking about 2011. She started in 1996. That's right. And we had a working relationship with the restaurant. We did many of them. I mean, we did a lot of events here, and we got the idea of, let's do a 15th anniversary celebration for Tori. Mm-hmm. And all about it. You were hard pressed to find anybody except Tori, who voiced any opposition to doing that. Tori was so humble that she was just like, no, you don't need to, to do that. And like, oh no, we're doing it.
We're doing it. We're doing it up big.
You're going to be there. I'll drag you there if I have to, but this is going to happen. So it was only about maybe a week or so into the planning stages of that. And by this time we'd already decided we're doing it and it was going to happen. It's just now we got to fine tune it and work out all the details. Katie says to me, she goes, Tiny, I just thought of something. She said, it's been a year since we got together on the air. She goes, what if we did a 15-year celebration, obviously for Tori, but then also had the same simultaneously as a 1-year anniversary celebration for the Tiny and Katie show. I'm like, okay, fine, whatever. Because I'm the same way Tori is. I don't care about the things like that.
I'm a little different.
Katie,
I kind of fall on the other end of the spectrum on that one.
Katie's just a touch as far as celebrations, especially in her honor.
Yes.
And attention, which if you've listened to the Tiny and Katie show way back then or even now, you know how she is. She admits it. She's not shy about it.
Not at all.
So we get this big cake and have it decorated. And I think it had a picture of Tori on one top corner and you and I on the bottom top corner. And it said, happy 15th anniversary to Tori, happy 1-year anniversary to Tiny and Katie. We had this big celebration. All of us were there at this restaurant. It's a great day. Pass around the cake and celebrate. Woohoo. Well, come Monday, as I typically would, Katie and I were on the air doing mornings at the time. So we left the studio, went and set my stuff down. And I would always just go right back in to talk to Tori. And she would hold court. Tori was not one that used profanity, ever.
100%. My favorite Tori story is when she swore because she never said anything.
Oh yeah,
like that. Yeah.
And this is there were a few times where if she swore, it was you knew something was up. I said, so how was your weekend? Well, it was good, and she just seemed a little off. Tori was always very, bubbly. And if something was bothering her, you really had to know her cues to be able to say, hey, something's up. What's going on? So I said, Mother, something's off here. You okay? I'm all right. No, you're not. I said, did I do something? Cause I was thinking, well, Tori's can't generally be mad. She's probably just got to be upset with me for something I don't know about. She goes, well, not really. I'm like, that's odd. Not really? You're upset with me? So what's the deal? She goes, now mind you, Katie's never heard this story.
No, I'm scared. Did I do something wrong?
She goes, that anniversary thing this weekend pissed me off. I said, what do you mean made you upset? What upset you about it? She goes, you know how I am. I don't care about attention. She said, and I was originally the one that said I didn't care about doing this at all. That y'all shouldn't do it. She goes, and then Katie comes along and says about having a 1-year celebration with it. She goes, that's a bunch of
I mean, listen, I got to be honest with you. I don't remember this, but yet she's absolutely correct. What a selfish thing for me to do.
Oh my God.
As you were telling that story, I was thinking, did I really take away from her 15 years with our 1 year? I cannot believe that. See, that's what I mean. I was this stupid young child and I needed someone to rein me in.
I told her, I said, Tori, why didn't you say something? She goes, well, how would it have looked if I would have said that bugged me before it happened and then go crush that girl's dreams because she was so worried about 1 year? She goes, I don't care. She's like, but 15 years compared to 1 year? Come on.
Totally. I'm sorry, Tori. You're absolutely correct.
Oh my God.
What a selfish thing. When you started telling that story, I was praying that you weren't going with she was upset because I decided to celebrate her 1 year.
What else could it have been? She was just, and we laughed about that years later. And I've always said, with Katie, Tori had and all of this 100% was her love for me. She was very protective of me. So when Katie came along, I think Tori's initial thought process was hoping that you, not knowing anything about you, Katie, that you wouldn't drag me down. And I think that was originally her hesitation toward you. But I saw how she changed and very in short order to love you so much. And
we were quite close. Yeah,
she
we
just
were quite
was,
close.
She had this way about her, and you're hard pressed to find someone Tori didn't like, or at least would admit that she didn't like. I'm sure there were people. Well, I know there were people. There were a few, but yeah, she was one of a kind.
So much love.
Oh yeah,
so much love to give, and just always put everybody else ahead and before. No matter how she was feeling, what kind of day she was having, you could come in with some problem that was so minuscule, and she acknowledged it.
Yep.
She listened, gave really good, solid advice. I mean, she was a great advice giver.
She was
really incredible.
And I will say this about Tori. I thought about this a lot. There have been many DJs over the years that Tori was there. Then when Tori and I were both there, and subsequently, who all due respect to them when I say this, I'm not downing anybody who's ever worked at WAYZ, but no one was the face of WAYZ except
more than she was
for Tori Anderson.
Absolutely.
That does not mean that anyone else didn't do right by the radio station, that there wasn't a pride of them with the radio station. But there, if everyone else was here, Tori was way up here.
Absolutely. I remember a few times I had to fill in for her and do middays, and I was terrified.
Oh, yeah.
The second they heard my voice, where's Tori? Where's Tori? Where's Tori? She okay? Is she coming back? I mean, it's intimidating because she was so insanely loved. I've never seen anything like it. It was really unbelievable. It's something that I really strive to have.
Yeah.
Because she was a really incredible human being.
And I want to end with this. One of my fondest memories, probably my fondest memory of Tori is this. We were doing the WAYZ birthday bash at Red Run Park, and she knew that it was my dream to bring country music back to Red Run Park and have a big celebration, and we did. And she was so proud of me, and her health was fading at that point. And she came. 2 weeks later, it was either the following weekend or 2 weeks later. I think it was 2 weeks later. Mary and I were getting married. And I had not invited Tori to the wedding. The reason for that was not because I didn't want her to be there. Quite the opposite. Of all people, I really wanted her to be there. But I knew that she had difficulty traveling, and we were getting married in Ocean City. So a 4-hour drive was not something that I think that she would have done. But I felt that she would have pushed herself to do it. And I didn't want her to feel obligated to do that, because I think that she would have felt obligated. And we were sitting backstage and talking, and Mary was there, my mother, and Tori said, "Well, you guys have a real big day coming up." And we said, yeah. And we're getting married in Ocean City. And Tori had, by this time, it wasn't bad by any means, but she would forget some things, or, different little thoughts and things would kind of, skip away on her, but nothing that you would, sound any alarms over. Right. And she goes, "It's in Ocean City." I said, "Yeah." And her friend, Debbie, was there, and she said, and Debbie I love Debbie.
I love Debbie. Yeah,
so much.
She's a good woman.
And remind me to tell you about Debbie here in a second. But Debbie said, "Well, when is it?" And we told her, and she said, "Well, we're going to be at the beach at that time down near Ocean City. I think it was Rehoboth or somewhere in the Delaware beaches." And I said, "Wait a minute, you're going to be there on the day you'll be in town, the day that we're getting married?" And long and short of it is, like, "Please come." I practically begged backstage at the concert, "Please, dear God, come." And Mary, same thing. "Oh, yeah, please. Debbie, you're welcome too. I mean, you guys are coming together. Please come." And Tori, again, no, we don't want to, we don't want to take away food or anything you have planned or seats. And I said, "Tori, we have plenty of food, but I'm not there for the food. I want you there. I just didn't ask you because I didn't want you to feel obligated. But now that you're going to be there, I want you to feel obligated." Yeah. And
don't worry about food. This is Tiny's wedding. We'll have plenty.
Yeah, we're going to have food aplenty. And when I walked out and saw Tori sitting there at my wedding, there. I will never forget that as long as I live. That on my most important day, one of the most important people in my life was there. With such pride. And you look and you know that it may not be long. And you just want to hold on. And I love that woman. And I will. If God takes if my memory goes one day, and it may very well do that, I think her face will be one of the last things I see. Because there's a kindness that you have to hold on to. Tori is a once in a generation person. They'll never make another. They can't. And I know how much all the listeners loved her, and believe me, she felt it. I felt it. I felt it today. Filling in for her. I said I was filling in for her. I've been doing that shift for years now. Tori's shift. I never even thought about that until today, Katie.
I never thought about that either.
Mm-hmm. I'm doing her shift.
How it's kind of coming all full circle there.
Yeah. And Debbie, her friend, had reached out to me earlier in the week, and we were just kind of conversing, and I was sharing condolences. And she said that Tori was very much at peace at the end. And that, and I certainly hope she doesn't mind me saying this, but that Debbie was there and held her hand all the way up until. And, COVID really put the kibosh on me visiting her. I wish I could have. And I remember some of the messages that she would send. I would send her pictures of Reagan. And that's the one big thing. I wish she could have met her, met my daughter. But she was so proud of me. She was so proud of the weight that I lost. And it just means so much to someone. I have a wonderful, loving family. Please don't think that I don't get my fair share of love. I do. But when you get it from someone you're not related to, it takes on a meaning that you can't describe. Because I hate to say it, but your family kind of has to love you. Tori didn't have to love me. She didn't have to come to my wedding. She didn't have to get me a job. She didn't have to name me. She didn't do anything. But she did.
She was one special lady.
Yeah. I hate to end it like this, but this will continue if I keep going. God, Tori, I love you. I know if Tori didn't make it to heaven, then you might as well just stop trying now.
No, don't even try. Yeah.
It's pointless. It's an exercise in futility.
She had a front row seat.
She certainly did. And I thought about this last night. And I said, and I'm going to leave it this. I said, I believe very strongly in what I'm about to say. I believe there's life after this. There has to be, because sometimes this one's so miserable that there has to be something better when you close your eyes for the final time here. And, I hope that when each of us breathe our final breath, that there are our loved ones waiting for us. I mean, how amazing that would be. And I've always envisioned this, you get there and you see these people almost immediately and you give them hugs and it's this grand reunion. But I thought, I won't see Tori right away when I get there, because I won't be able to, because I'll hear her first, because she'll be singing and her voice will stand out above everything else. And it will be like a lighthouse and a beacon of hope that she was. And her light will shine even more brightly than it has before. And everyone will be drawn to her. And I can't wait to see her again. Tori, I love you very much.
The sweetest thing